to lower the microphone, so at least we're off to a normal start. But before I begin tonight with my introduction of my dear friend, I want to take a quick moment for two personal remarks that I know she would support. And the first is, if you're sitting here in this room tonight, you just lived through another day and you're here in this moment, in this experience, be thankful. Life is very beautiful. And it might sound a little cliche, that's because it's true, that today and tomorrow, if we're lucky enough and blessed enough to wake up, it's truly a gift. What's also beautiful is the people in this room. To be around one person that gets it and understands service and sacrifice and the incomprehensible acts of courage and the amount of last breaths taken to lead to this moment. What we have here today is it's incomprehensible. So be thankful, and with the people in this room, to have an entire room full of people that get it, people that love this country and love and support us. It's just too powerful for words. And my second note, if you are wearing the uniform, if you have worn the uniform, I want to go beyond saying thank you, but to remind you that when no one made you, you took the initiative to raise your right hand, to give up to your life for this nation, for those to the right and left of you that wore that same uniform, and for the people in this room that you didn't even know. That is so profound and so powerful. So be proud of yourselves and never forget that when so few others did, you made that commitment. Tonight, I am introducing an extraordinary person and an even better friend. In November 2010, I laid unconscious and clinging to life as I traveled through combat trauma hospitals and the over 7,000 miles on my journey back to the United States after being injured by a hand grenade in Afghanistan. Soon after waking up, weeks later, but still years before I was a Medal of Honor recipient, or before anyone even knew my story, I learned of the friendship that had formed between my family and then Governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley. I remember my mom telling me as I laid in the hospital bed, slowly becoming more conscious every day. I remember her telling me when she would receive a text message or a phone call from Governor Haley to offer a friendly hello, a listening ear, or to offer assistance however she could. To summarize, and to quote my mom, she is just so sweet. And speaking of my mom, she was one of my last thoughts during what I believe to be my final moments here on this earth. I thought of how devastated she was going to be as I lay bleeding out. I thought of how devastated she was going to be when she found out that I was never coming home. So it is impossible to express my gratitude and appreciation for her and for the good people like Nikki Haley who were there for her and my family during that difficult and daunting time. Today, not only do we remain friends, but our friendship at times also gives me entertainment. When friends reach out to let me know, dude, the United States ambassador to the United Nations commented on your Instagram. Tonight, it is my privilege and humbling honor to introduce my friend, fellow American and South Carolinian, former and the first female governor of South Carolina, former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, military wife, mom, and tonight's Patriot Award recipient, Nikki Haley.
Thank you so much. It is truly, you've heard this from the other honorees, but I have to say it's just truly humbling to be here. And I've got to tell you that to see Kyle, I still feel that kick in my gut when we heard what happened to him. And I remember calling his mom, who had been by his hospital bed for the longest time, and she cried, and I just knew how hard it is when you're a part of a military family. And then after Kyle had gone through his surgeries, he hadn't had all of his reconstructive surgery done, he came and he sat in my office, in the governor's office. And after knowing what happened and what he did, all I kept thinking was, he's just a kid. He's just a kid, and he showed that kind of courage. And he showed that kind of love for his military brothers. And so when you think of the Medal of Honor, it's beyond anything we can comprehend, and it's a debt we can never repay. So thank you, Kyle, for that introduction. It's certainly great to see you again. And being there for his Medal of Honor ceremony will always be one of the highlights of my life. Kyle, your example of courage is an inspiration to me and a blessing to America. Thank you. A crowd like this deserves a few war stories, but I don't have any good war stories. The closest I've come to combat was my time as ambassador. I was a Republican in New York City, and I represented the United States at the United Nations. Out of 193 nations on Earth, 190 were mad at America on any given day. It sure felt like battle, I can tell you that. I can't speak from the perspective of a combat veteran, but I am the wife of one. My husband, Michael, is a major in the South Carolina Army National Guard. He would actually be here today, but he is at guard duty. Think about what that means for just a moment. When I was governor, I was his commander-in-chief. I reminded him of that often, but he was just not amused. I couldn't be more honored and proud of the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. Like me, the Society's home is in the great state of South Carolina. You reflect the Palmetto State's patriotism, and by telling the story of our greatest heroes, you spread that patriotism nationwide and unite people around a higher calling. One thing's for sure, we need patriotism and unity now more than ever in our country. Thank you for doing the Lord's work. I am truly humbled by the Patriot Award, and I will always treasure it. Love of country has always been a passion in my entire life. But I have to say, it's strange to receive this award from a group that represents the truest patriots and heroes in the land. When I look back at everything I've done, especially as governor and then as ambassador, I like to think I've made a difference. But it's a drop in the bucket compared to what the 3,515 recipients of the Medal of Honor have done for America. And so while I'm receiving the Patriot Award today, I want to acknowledge the patriots who deserve recognition every day. To every American who has been awarded the Medal of Honor, and especially to the 35 of you who are with us today, you have made our country stronger and safer. You bring out the best of America. We owe you a debt that we can never repay. A few years back, I was asked to write a piece on something I love about America. I was told I could choose anything, but I chose the day when our military men and women leave their families to serve their country. You know all about Deployment Day. So do I. In 2013, I had a front row seat to one. That's the year my husband, Michael, deployed to Helmand Province in Afghanistan. We knew that day was coming. We planned for it for months. We talked to our children, discussed our finances, and walked through the worst case scenarios and all of the what ifs. I thought I was ready for Deployment Day, but I was wrong. The morning of his departure, we drove to McCready Training Base to say our goodbyes. Families surrounded the officers and enlisted personnel. Patriotic music blared over the speakers. Politicians were glad-handing, but I chose not to be a governor that day. I was a military wife and a mom, so I kept my focus on Michael and the kids. Before too long, the Adjutant General took the stage. He spoke about the courage and duty of our loved ones and the incredible thing that they had chosen to do. Slowly but surely, our worry and sadness were replaced with a deep feeling of pride. Our loved ones were going overseas to keep us safe. My Michael and his brothers and sisters in uniform were going to preserve our freedom, because our freedom won't preserve itself. When the speech ended, silence set in. The time had come. Our two kids were the first to see the buses pull up. We all had tears in our eyes. Michael's and my parents began to say our goodbyes. And in one final outburst, my daughter said, "Daddy, please don't go." But she was the reason he was going. She and her brother. As Michael got on the bus, there was no hesitation. There was only the call of duty. It's the same call of duty that you answered to. In the days that followed, a lot of friends asked me why, as governor, I didn't pull some strings and keep him from going. They thought it was crazy for me letting him deploy to Afghanistan. But I didn't do it for one simple reason. Michael would have divorced me. He never would have forgiven me if I had interfered with his service to his country, and I never would have forgiven myself. America needs men and women who stand up when others sit down, who rush forward when others step back. We need heroes We need patriots. And by the grace of God, America has always had them for nearly 250 years. We have great men and women who've answered the call in our time. We have previous generations of freedom fighters, and most remarkably, we have you, and all who've received the Medal of Honor. As I was writing this speech, I asked myself what the Medal of Honor means. There are many answers, but I think the most important meaning is patriotism. You, above all others, remind us that America is worth fighting for. It pains me to say that we live in a time where national pride is fading fast. Now, I'm no stranger to people hating on the United States. I saw it every day at the United Nations. Dictators and thugs love to get in front of the camera and tell the world how bad America is. It's their favorite pastime, and as far as I can tell, it's now the main purpose of the United Nations. Proving the haters wrong and defending our country was the best part of my job. But I never expected to hear those same lies from our fellow Americans. You've heard it too. I know you have. And I bet it upsets you as much as it upsets me. It's a stark contrast with everything the Medal of Honor stands for. You and your peers represent sacrifice. In fact, many Medal of Honor recipients gave their lives in distant corners of the world so that our country would survive. But here at home, the rising generations don't think America should survive. They don't want to sacrifice anything for the land of the free, because they don't think that freedom matters. The signs are all around us. We see it in the anger on social media and the rage and riots on our city streets. We see it in the indoctrination of the college classroom and the cowardice of the corporate boardroom. Whatever form it takes, the message is always the same. They say our national ideals of liberty, equality, and the rule of law are nothing more than tools of oppression. They even claim that living in America is a curse, not a blessing. But they couldn't be more wrong. My immigrant parents always reminded my brothers, my sister, and me every day how blessed we were to live in America. And they were right. I know from experience how blessed we are. When I was ambassador, I traveled to some very dark places. Places where life is cheap, liberty is non-existent, and happiness is a distant dream. I wish everyone squabbling on Twitter could see what I've seen. You've seen it too, across the globe. I was in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where they use rape as a weapon of war. I was in South Sudan, where I sat with crying mothers whose babies were taken from their arms and thrown into a fire right in front of them. I saw images of dead children in Syria, where the dictator used chemical weapons to murder them. I dealt with North Korea, where the regime starves its people to feed its nuclear weapons program. And I confronted communist China, where ethnic minorities are put in de facto concentration camps. The regime subjects them to torture, sexual abuse, and forced labor, all because they're a different religion. Communist China is a monster. I wish the college students and Washington politicians would pay attention to what's really happening. I wish they would recognize that evil is real across the world. Maybe then they'd realize America isn't just another country. We have the freedoms and blessings that other countries wish they had. In the corners of the United Nations, the ambassadors would take me to the side and they would say that they were envious of us. They loved the fact that we had freedom of speech and freedom of religion and freedom to do and be anything we wanted to be without government getting in the way. And what I saw is when America leads, the world follows. When we speak, the world listens. Who we are, the world wants to be. America is the best nation in human history, and she deserves all of our love. We have to get our patriotism back. We have to raise the next generation to love our country and not hate it. Of course, America isn't perfect, but the principles at the heart of America are perfect. If we don't believe in them, if we don't apply them to make America better, then our country won't last. And it's not just us. If we lose our patriotism, freedom itself will be lost in this world. As we gather here, the enemies of freedom are gathering too. The Russians are shooting missiles in Ukrainian cities. The Iranians are building a terrorist army and soon nuclear weapons. So is North Korea. And Communist China is taking steps to invade Taiwan. It won't stop there. Beijing's ultimate goal is to dominate the world. Make no mistake, nothing makes our enemies happier than our national self-loathing. When they see our college students shouting that America is racist, when they see rioters trying to burn our cities to the ground, the dictators of the world think their time has come. They think freedom is retreating and the tyrants are ready to rush into the breach. Our enemies at least have the courage of their convictions. If we hope to beat them, then we have to have the courage of our convictions. The most important mission in America today is to end the self-loathing and regain our self-belief and pride. I have devoted my life to this cause. Everything I did as governor and as ambassador was motivated by my love of our country. I will keep fighting for America in whatever capacity I can, because that's my calling on earth. You have devoted yourselves to this noble task too. In fact, you've done things I never could. To those of you who've received the Medal of Honor, your patriotism summons us to action. And to everyone here who supports the work of the society, your witness to patriotism has never mattered more. I believe that if every citizen knew these heroes' stories, we wouldn't be where we are today. So keep telling the world what these heroes did and who they are. Keep finding new ways to reach the next generation with a message of national pride. And keep up the faith that our country will come through this crisis. Because that's what Americans always do. If my life has taught me anything, it's that America has an incredible capacity to self-correct. There's a bottomless well of goodness within our people, and it's source of our country's greatest achievements. Now is the time to tap that well and find our self-confidence once again. Now is the time to remember that even on our worst day, we are blessed to live in America. I know we can do it because we've done it so many times throughout our history. Look no further than how Americans rallied after the terrorist attacks we commemorate tomorrow. In the wake of September 11th, 2001, every American believed in America. We all stepped up in different ways, but many of our friends and family members went much further than the rest. They put on the uniform of the United States. There was no question in their hearts that America deserved their love and, if necessary, their life. My husband, Michael, was among them, as I saw on that deployment day. He did his part, in his time, to keep freedom alive. So did each of you who've received the Medal of Honor in even more extraordinary ways. Now we must inspire a new generation to do their part in this time, both in uniform and out of it. Together, let's do everything in our power to renew that national pride and bring about a new birth of patriotism. This may be one of our hardest fights yet, but we all know America is worth fighting for. And I have faith we will win. May God bless this society and all the recipients of the Medal of Honor, and may God bless this great country for which they gave so much. Thank you.